Once again, they left me unsupervised. It's about 50 days of the election. What were they thinking? Well, howdy, folks. It's a beautiful Tuesday evening here in Tallahassee, Florida, live from the Wilson Center for kids who can't read good and who want to read good. We are going to have a great show tonight. We're going to take things a little differently than usual. Tara is on a plane somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, so she will not be joining us this evening. And I'm going to hopefully be joined by Stuart Stevens in just a few minutes. I want to just run through a few things first. We've got Trump going full death cult at his MAGA rally. We've got Ron DeSantis now being sued in a class action lawsuit as a kidnapper of asylum seekers. Good job, Ron. Really pro move. And with all the elections coming up, we wanted to run tonight. Part of the show is going to be walking through some of the ads we're doing that are up now, that have been running, and to explain to you a little bit about why we're doing each of those individual pieces. It's going to be fun. You're going to have to pardon me a little bit. I've got to read the screen because, you know, I got a few things going on. So the first thing I want to do is, as we do on every Tuesday night, lead off with last week in the Republican Party. And I'm going to tell you something. For those of you with a sensitive constitution, for those of you with a delicate constitution, when you see the rap video, I want you to know we didn't air the whole thing because we didn't think the audience could handle it. It's so much. It reaches a level of cringe that is almost indescribable, but you'll see. Anyway, last week in the Republican Party coming up now.
Corn Pops, Fruit Loops, Rice Krispies, with a side of paper plates and napkins.
We love the country. The country's in trouble. It's got to be solved fairly quickly.
When you're with your My Pillow, you got my phone.
My name is Linda Paulson, Republican and awesome.
That if you have a dude that is wearing makeup, they need to be confronted and say, that's wrong. Why don't you just work on maybe getting your testosterone levels up a little bit? I do wear makeup.
I want a very big, capable airplane.
What has any fifth grader done to have made the world better because he or she is in it?
I'm just glad to be in a room where I'm one of the oldest people.
As a female adult, I know what a woman is.
They just keep talking about cows and meat all day long.
Republicans will let kids just be kids.
See, I'm getting emotional.
It comes with an NFT, a token version as well.
Still don't get that.
And my pronouns are patriot and ass kicker.
Was a dream that I had 10 years ago where I was in my dream. How many of you guys have dreams?
I got eagle bumps. We don't get goosebumps here.
I hollered, I loved him. He stopped and he said, I love you too. And then he said, this guy says he loves me. And I said, wait, I'm a woman.
There was nothing more cringe in the 90s than those dare rap videos where like local cops would make up a rap about not doing drugs, except that video. It is so truly bad. I do. If you really want to just stay up at night wondering about the fate of humanity, just dig that one out. It's quite remarkable. So I want to talk a little bit about a fuck you to the DC consultant class and to the DC donor class about two people. Well, three people, really. The first is our old friend Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. Remember the sweater vest? He's a lovely suburban guy. Yeah, I'm a regular guy. I'm not one of those Trumpers. I'm not a crazy person. I'm not an election denier or an anti-vaxxer or a kook. And Glenn Youngkin has now decided he wants to run for president, like every other Republican elected official apparently in the country who hopes that Trump will be eaten by wolves. So what did Youngkin do this weekend? He went out to campaign for that perfectly normal Republican, that everyday, regular, basic Republican who doesn't seem crazy at all, Carrie Lake, except she is crazy, and Glenn went to campaign for her. This is a lesson, okay? It is a really important lesson to learn. There are no good actors left in the GOP. Liz Cheney's out. Adam Kinzinger is out. They're the last people. Turn out the damn lights, folks, when you leave, because even the ones that corporate America thinks are normal are pushing people like Carrie Lake, who is a radical election denier, who is a lunatic, who is cuckoo-cuckoo in every damn level. And so Glenn Youngkin going out there this week, I had a lot of my old Republican friends reach out to me like, oh, Youngkin's great. He's a normal guy. He's the future, not Donald Trump. Well, no, he's not. He's not. Because even though you thought he was the sweater vest and the trust fund made him a normal guy, didn't. Turns out he's just like the rest of the crazies. Turns out he's drinking the same Kool-Aid. Turns out that he's going to join the election deniers. And so in 2024, don't expect a guy like Glenn Youngkin to save you, corporate Republicans. And the other person the corporate Republicans were deeply in love with, of course, is Ron DeSantis, who has sent another flight, who's lured another flight, like Roy Moore getting a girl into his windowless van with candy. He's lured another flight of immigrants from Texas, not Florida, from Texas. And this time they're taking them to Delaware for another stunt. Now, I will say this about Governor DeSantis, and you should all keep this in mind. You cannot shame him. You cannot make him feel bad. You cannot make him feel guilty or small or cruel or petty because he doesn't have those human emotions. You can't make his wife, Casey, the Madame Defarge of the DeSantis administration, feel bad. She may look at you with those doe eyes on television and blink them and hold back tears at some point, but she doesn't care either. These people are running against Donald Trump in 2024. That is the only reason they're doing this. They want to have a stunt. They want to have a prank. They want to have something they can go on Fox and do over and over and over again, so that they can prove that they're the biggest dickhead in the room. And so don't try to shame him. Don't try to make him feel embarrassed about it. We should keep bringing it out, what he's doing. We should keep giving a maximum degree of legal pressure, which is coming up, I think, very quickly in Florida and elsewhere against the DeSantis administration. Because we're going to find what they've done was to fraudulently lure these folks onto a plane, these legitimate, legal asylum seekers who came here in the process. They weren't sneaking over the border in the dead of night. They lured them onto this plane by fraudulent means. They tricked them into going to Martha's Vineyard. I'm sure they're doing the same thing now. All of this is going to be peeled back and revealed. We're going to learn every bit about it. It's time to treat this just like you treat Trump. You ignore the acting and the performative bullshit. You ignore all the song and the dance, and you treat it like the criminal matter that it is. And these people are using taxpayer money in Florida for fraudulent purposes. They're engaging in fraudulent purposes by luring these people onto the planes. It's an outrage, yes, but don't try to make them feel guilty about it. Fight them instead. Hurt them where it hurts instead. Now, I do think, and we'll put some lists together, you should also go back. If you're outraged about the fact that they're luring legal asylum seekers onto airplanes to take them to random places, you should also remember that Ron DeSantis has the support of America's billionaire class. We'll put out a list of his top donors for you very shortly, so you can contact them and let you know how you feel about it. And for the most part, he won't care about that much either. But as the key anti-Trump candidate in the 2024 race, that's where you have to keep this framed in your head. That's what you have to understand about it. If Ron DeSantis thought he could win the 2024 primary by roasting immigrant children on a barbecue grill, he'd do it. He wants to be president, okay? He wants to beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you are slow, you are old, and you are weak. You are not seeing this guy coming up on your six. You're not seeing it. Everybody else sees it. So we're going to have an interesting couple months with this guy. He's going to continue to do this until the budget runs out for it. And I've heard this afternoon that the Florida legislature is now talking about appropriating $50 million next year to do this. So Ron's going to have more fun for his stunts, for his campaign tricks. But we're going to learn everything. Florida's an open record state. These lawsuits are going to bring a lot of people into federal court. Good luck. And I'm looking forward to the depositions of all the scumbags, charlatans, and scales that surround him. Speaking of a charlatan, a lot of people thought, oh, Brett Baer is a good dude. He's the good guy at Fox. He's a pro. He's a journalist. Well, it turns out that Brett Baer was advocating during the 2020 election to undo Fox's call of Arizona. Why? Because he was scared of getting phone calls from the Trump team. He didn't like it. They were calling and screaming at him. So, Brett Baer, one more guy you can put on the pile of people who at Fox, who in the Fox sewage pipe are just one more part of the problem. All right. So listen, guys, Stuart Stevens will be joining us right after this next hit. I want everybody to watch this because I may work blue, but man, Donald Trump this weekend, it was like Donald Trump works goth. This was some dark emo stuff from Trump this weekend. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
The American dream is being torn to shreds. The economy is crashing. Your 401ks are collapsing. Murders, shootings, stabbings, rapes, suffering, mayhem, and despair. People are being shot and executed. The birds are dying. Bloodthirsty criminals are laying waste to Democrat-run cities, riddled with bullet holes and soaked in blood. Get on your knees and they shoot him through the head.
Tim Ryan has not one but 2 books on yoga and meditation.
Girls going to school, they cut them up for fun and killed them both. Sexually assaulting and victimizing nearly 24 women. Tied her to the bedpost and assaulted her after he murdered and dismembered her mother and her 14-year-old brother. We put the baby aside and then we essentially execute the baby.
There you go. Just another very, very inspirational speech by our President Donald J. Trump.
Inspirational where? Mortar? I mean, come on. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, I would like to bring on my good friend Stuart Stevens now. We will have a talk about some of the ads we're doing. Hello, Stuart.
Hey, Rick. That was really uplifting. I feel like the city on the hill is back,
The shining city on the hill with a glowing red eye where the light should be.
I'm going to go out and watch some snuff films to cheer up. Wow. Or maybe go down to the Pound maybe go down to the Pound and watch them gas some puppies. Really, I mean,
I'm going to have a serial killer Netflix.
What kills me is, remember all that time we were coming up and it was like, whoever is the most optimistic candidate will win. Remember? It was whoever, that thing Bill Clinton said, we had a lot of, the bigger candidate will always win.
Yep. Yep. Well, now it's like, I mean, that was everything but, Soylent Green is made out of people.
One of my many wrong statements in 2016 was I said at some point, I'm sure with self-importance, for Donald Trump to win, everything we know about politics must be wrong. As it turned out, it was wrong. Everything I thought I knew.
Well, here we go. It's been a weird thing to see Trump sort of moving through this process of trying to rev up the QAnon crowd again and all the conspiracy theories and the craziness. But man, this weekend was it was right on it. It was very much on it. And I suspect we're going to see a lot more of that in the coming weeks as the legal situation starts to look a little more precarious than he might have thought it would be.
Well, speaking of legal situation, I just would like to have been in the room where they were sitting around in DeSantis world and going, okay, what is the one thing we could do that Donald Trump never did? Okay, what if we kidnap some people and put them on a plane? Trump never did that. So that'll help us. That'll help us in a Republican primary. Republicans will love that. And they go, great idea. Let's charter the jet.
This should work well for all of us.
And where do you call people like to get? How do you staff that? Like,
right? Who do you say under your staff? Who do you say?
Go like, you go on the dark web. You go on the dark web and go, "Do you have experience in kidnapping? Is there like a Craigslist for kidnappers?" I mean, where? How do you get these people? You know, you can't just say to your average, like, you know, Florida State poli sci guys, "Look, I'd like you to go kidnap some people." Okay.
Well, by the way, can you write up a kidnapping plan for this event? And
who advanced that? I'd like to know. Like, how do you advance a kidnapping?
All I can tell you is the Justice Department is going to be really interested in that.
It's just unbelievable.
It really is. It really is.
You know, one of the things that it just kills her. How many people told us, like our old Republican friends and others, you guys just don't understand Glenn Youngkin. He's just a regular guy. Once he gets in, so what's he doing now? He's going off and he's campaigning for Terry Lake. I mean, who makes Donald Trump look like Thomas Jefferson? I mean, it's somewhat. This is how you advance in the party. You advance through, you know, rendition, which is basically what happened here. Or, you know, you go out and you have, you know, Terry Lake, who won't. The fact that she won't say that she has an elected president is almost sort of beside the point. I mean, she wants to secede from the union.
Yep. Cut off Arizona from the rest of the union.
I mean, where do you? So there's old Glenn. That's it.
That piece you did, that ad you wrote about her. I mean, just the idea that she's gonna cut off, you know, the federal government in Arizona. Like, okay, see how that works out for you with Social Security.
You know, I mean, you know, I'm a 7th generation Mississippian, and we tried that. It didn't work out well, you know.
Not really. It doesn't really go the same way people think it's going to go.
Yeah, and now the feds have a nuke, so it's really going to be hard for Arizona. But
I don't know. The Arizona nuclear weapons program under Kerry Lake is going to be the marvel of the world. Are they going to let weapons inspectors into it?
God, but this is, you know, this is what happens when you accept Trump and you think that you can contain him, and the poison spreads, and you give people permission to be their worst self. Yep. And the next thing you know, you're governor of Florida and you're ordering up jets to kidnap people from Texas to help you in a primary for president.
It's a hell of a world. Well, speaking of Kerry Lake and Glenn Youngkin, we've got a spot in the stack tonight. And folks, we're going to go through some ads we've done recently just to refresh your memory a little bit, because it's National Voting Registration Day and the election is roaring up on us. Make sure tomorrow you check your voter registration and get out and do it. But in the meantime, let's enjoy this one about Kerry Lake and Glenn Youngkin's new best friend in the great state of Arizona.
We need to send a very big message to the federal government that we're not going to take this anymore. We need to fire the federal government.
Interesting idea. Maybe it's a good idea. Of course, 42% of Arizona's budget comes from the federal government, so that would require a 72% increase in state taxes to fill the gap. You got that kind of money? No more Social Security checks. No more Medicare. Luke Air Force Base? Gone. In fact, say goodbye to most of the Air Force, Army, Marine bases all over the state. Arizona students would need to figure something else out because federal student aid would have to go. And sadly, all the national parks, including the Grand Canyon, well, they'd have to close. And we'd also lose all of our air traffic controllers, which sounds fun. But hey, drug traffickers would be happy. There wouldn't be a DEA in the state anymore.
We need to fire the federal government.
Right now, Kerry Lake is just a kook with crazy ideas. But if Arizona elects her for governor, her crazy ideas could crush Arizona's economy, raise our taxes, make our communities less safe, and turn Arizona into a national joke. Does this still sound like a good idea?
I mean, pretty to the point.
I mean, yeah. And, you know, she's still saying this. She hasn't retracted this or anything. No. And it doesn't matter. To Republicans, that's like fine. You can say anything. I mean, just this crazy, batshit crazy stuff. And there's Glenn Youngkin. You know, I'm sure they'll get together in matching Patagonia vest.
Right.
Lake has a history of liking to be in costume.
Not as much as Tudor Dixon, though.
Now, look, I mean, I would say, if you just woke me up in the middle of the night, do you think the Republican Party has advanced and is more open-minded because there's a place for people with a history of vampire porn? I mean, I would have to say generally that's probably a positive sign, but in her case, she's another batshit crazy person.
Yeah, folks, if you're not following the Tudor Dixon race, just Google Tudor Dixon and vampire porn. You will not be disappointed, I promise you. So, well, with that, I mean, I guess we're going to dispose of Youngkin a little bit, but out there also in the great state, we've got Blake Masters, who is a guy who is consistently one of the creepiest, weirdest candidates in this election cycle. I mean, I cannot look at the guy because he's just so, there's something about him I find like making a suit out of people's skin in his basement weird. And he's always on the wrong side of everything. So let's play that ad that we've got running out in Arizona against Masters.
What do you call someone always on the wrong side? Someone who has pledged to cut Social Security and Medicare, part of the Republican plan to raise taxes on tens of millions of middle-class Americans. Who believes America should have let the Nazis win? Someone who writes lovingly about a Nazi war criminal. That's Blake Masters. And there's one thing Arizona shouldn't call Blake Masters, and that's Senator.
Stuart, the funny thing is, since we wrote that, nothing has changed with Blake Masters except he's gotten weirder and more weird stuff about him has come out.
Yeah, this is a guy that, has a wood chipper on his Christmas list. He's just an absolute creep of a guy. And he's been that way. Apparently there's stuff from college where he's out there saying this crazy stuff. I mean, look, you have a guy who's a Republican nominee for the state that elected John McCain, who thinks that America shouldn't have fought the Nazis. We shouldn't have fought after Pearl Harbor.
I don't know where you take that one. I don't know where you go from there. I mean, the fact that he's a libertarian, vegan CrossFitter, he's not going to shut up about any bad idea that he's got. So.
Yeah, and I'm guilty.
No offense to vegans, libertarians, or CrossFitters, but
I'm guilty of this as a guy that has been known to do CrossFit. It's the old joke goes, "How do you know that someone does CrossFit? Just wait, they'll tell you."
Right.
Which is absolutely true. There is a weird thing that he and that Marjorie woman with multiple names is also the CrossFit.
Yes.
That's troubling. I'm not sure what that means, but
well, she's also into having a tantra instructor, so God knows. I don't even want to go there. I'll get in trouble again. So, but
I mean, look, we should be realistic. Both of these people could win.
They could. They could. While we make fun of them, folks, it is a deadly serious matter. Is that is a state where the people in that state that could have the two highest offices are two of the most extreme MAGA candidates in the country.
And Arizona is definitely going to be a swing state. It's a battleground state. They're going to, Terry Lake is governor. God knows what they're going to do with the process of actually, certifying an election. That Blake Masters is going to vote not to certify if when Trump loses again or DeSantis loses. But this is how it starts. I mean, it never gets better. Because that's how these things go, these autocracies, where it always becomes, and you've written about this beautifully and talked about it, where the next cycle only gets worse because shock value and hate and anger is something that is just so essential. Feeling aggrieved is something so essential to this movement. And you can't believe in the system. You can't believe in the organs of civil society because they're all corrupt. The FBI is corrupt. The election system's corrupt. Judges are corrupt. Therefore, we need a strong person. And that's how it happens.
Yeah, and when it comes to stuff, it's like entropy. It always increases. It always gets worse and more noisy and chaotic. And they always have to raise the stakes. So it used to be the elites look down on us. And then it became the global pedophile, cannibal, post-human society world, a great reset. I mean, all this unbelievably like over the top conspiratorial nonsense. And by next time, God knows where it's going to be. Gray aliens are kidnapping our children from the border to serve in Al-Qaeda caravans, whatever. So, it is. You're right, though. It is always. There's like a Gresham's law of politics. The bad is driving out the good more and more on the Republican side. And I mean, I think the worst candidate out there this year, Blake Masters is right up there. But for my money, Doug Mastriano.
Yep, the most dangerous, certainly.
Even before this weekend, sort of. I mean, I initially called it like a cosplay Hitler rally, but I'm not even sure I'd call it cosplay anymore. I mean, it was really a very dark moment, and he is increasingly trying to play to just the base, and increasingly sort of like the things that are entering into his language and his campaign messaging are increasingly dark and violent and scary.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who, you do this when you think you're going to win, and he thinks he's going to win because he thinks he's chosen by God. He thinks that there are, this is fate here at work, and that he's going to save the country. I had one candidate who I won't mention, but I was quite fond of, who in a multi-candidate primary, all the other candidates were talking about how they were picked by God. And my guy said, I think God's not following the tracking. And that's, but there's no desire to moderate.
That's right.
He is out there revealing who he is. And look, I mean, would you have thought? I wouldn't have thought that he could have won a Republican nomination in a sane Republican Party like Pennsylvania.
No.
And the Pennsylvania Republican Party has been very sane.
Traditionally, it's been one of the moderating forces inside the broader GOP.
Yeah, and he blew everybody away. So I mean, that we can't say this enough. One of the reasons that state is so dangerous is it's a state in which the governor appoints the Secretary of State. And he said, I'm going to appoint somebody who's going to, make sure that whoever I want to win wins, pretty much.
He's still saying he's going to go back and undo the 2020 election. He's also saying, and again, folks, National Voter Registration Day, he's also saying he's going to cancel every voter registration in the state and start over. And I mean, I'm guessing that he's concerned that there are people who vote because that aren't like him. But he's a guy who is as close to where you can legitimately call him a traitor of almost any candidate out there this year because of what he did with 1-6 and what he's promising to do for Trump, but not only now but in the future. And basically, he is an anti-small d Democratic candidate of the first order. We have an ad called "Traitor" we ran, and Doug, I want to tell you, I know you were pissed off about it. Stay tuned. But here's one we've run already and that I thought was pretty effective and pretty powerful.
Pennsylvania's story is the story of America. Our nation was born in Philadelphia and saved on the fields at Gettysburg. But today, a man who has been part of attacks on America from within wants to be our governor. Doug Mastriano could have stood with those bravely defending the Capitol that day. Instead, he stood with the insurrectionist mob that assaulted police officers, with those who chanted to hang the vice president as they smashed windows and waved the Confederate battle flag. Mastriano was investigated by the FBI after lying about where he stood that day and who he stood with. The truth was Doug Mastriano is the very enemy he once swore an oath to stand against. How could this man be our governor? Pennsylvania's story is the story of American patriots. Doug Mastriano's is the story of a traitor.
Well, Rick, having seen the next ad, Mastriano, I think we will call this our positive. We had to sort of tell both sides and give him a chance.
Just a simple contrast of policy differences with Doug Mastriano as compared to the next one. But I will say, I mean, look, you and I have been talking about this a lot, and we talked about this even today on one of the calls. It's like, people who don't have a bias for democracy who are running for office these days should scare the hell out of people. It should scare the living hell out of people that there are candidates running for office like Doug Mastriano who do not believe in representative democracy. They do not believe in the law, the rule of law, or that the vote should be counted and the representative democracy matters. And in a lot of states, those people that are running not just for governor or U.S. Senate or Congress. They're running for Secretary of State in a lot of these places, and those are races people don't pay attention to. It's just an honest answer. And folks, if you don't know who your Secretary of State is in your state,
I mean, the way the system's supposed to work, you shouldn't have to wake up every day and be worried about who's Secretary of State.
Right? Who counts the votes in my state? It used to be like a political luxury good. You didn't have to worry about it. You didn't have to think, oh my God, is it going to be some lunatic who believes in QAnon? As in several states, there are candidates running for Secretary of State who want to count the votes in 2024, who are wackadoos, who make Carrie Lake look like Margaret Thatcher, and who are so far over their skis, outside of the reality bubble that it's really difficult to imagine that. We have an ad that we put out this week, and folks, we've aired this ad this week, and it will be aired more specifically in a few key states. I'm sorry, we went out Friday. It'll be aired more specifically in a few key states soon, talking about the state officials that are running. But let's go ahead and roll the Secretary of State's ad from last week.
January 6th wasn't an accident. It wasn't simply a crowd getting out of control. It wasn't merely a riot. It was a planned insurrection. An insurrection which did not end when the sun set that day. Since then, Republican legislators in 47 states have introduced changes to voter laws in an attempt to rig the system they tried to overthrow. And now, the GOP is putting outsized effort into nominating MAGA candidates for Secretary of State seats across the country, positioning their operatives into seats of power so they can preach the big lie and usurp the will of the people. From the lowest to the highest levels of government, every race, every seat matters now more than ever. Americans must pay attention to their Secretary of State races and ensure that those who preach the big lie are stopped. The insurrection is still going, and if it doesn't end, democracy will.
Yeah, man, it's the inability to imagine it happening is one of the key elements in how democracy slide into autocracy.
As you always say, the greatest failure is to not imagine what the greatest failure could be.
Can I just make one point here? When they talk about the big lie, every Secretary of State, Republican or Democrat, in the 2020 election said that the votes in their state were counted properly.
Right.
There's not one out there.
No, there's nobody.
Yeah. I mean, so it's actually, and there are a lot of Republican Secretary of States out there. So,
I mean, the woman who was the Republican Secretary of State in Florida, which is an appointed position, certified the election and said it was the cleanest, and best run election in Florida history. Now she's now running for Congress as a MAGA kook. But okay, here we go. So, I think it's important, folks. Again, National Voter Registration Day. Just remember the stakes here are astronomical in these states. And while we're working on stuff in basically 9 or 10 places across the country right now, those Secretary of State races, wherever you are, please look into them. Please make sure you vote in them, and please check your voter registration status tomorrow or tonight. Go online in almost every state. You can go online to the Secretary of State's office and check your status. In many states, we've been hearing, anecdotal, but still enough to be worried of people having their voter registrations canceled, having their party affiliation switched. It's not good. Pay attention to it. It's important. Now, Stuart, also important is the tone in the last couple weeks of this last 4 weeks of this 8 weeks of this campaign, excuse me. That Republicans are trying to change the subject a lot. They're trying to get back on to an old horse they used to ride in the 1990s, back in an era where I had more hair and yours was even more glorious, which is the old contract with America. Now, folks, this weekend we got a little spy told us, a little birdie told us, because Kevin McCarthy's office leaks like a damn sieve. I'm just going to say it right now. Leaks like a sieve. That they were going to try to reboot the contract with America. And Stuart and Reed and I and Joe were all talking over the weekend. It's like, are you kidding me? They're trying to do this thing again? So here's the ad we ran over the week or this week on Monday that Kevin McCarthy got so upset he canceled the speech he was supposed to give in Pittsburgh Monday afternoon.
Remember this guy's contract with America? How'd that go? In a few days, the MAGAs will try to sell you another contract for America. Everything they're promising is already happening with President Biden. An economy that works for all Americans? Check. Record job growth. Good-paying jobs growing our economy. That's Biden, not MAGA. Peace through strength. Ask Ukraine who stands with them and who stands with Russia. Energy independence? Yeah, Biden's got that. Safe and secure communities? Check. Millions to improve policing, protecting our communities and civil rights. Fight to end government corruption and drain the swamp? Who are they kidding? For 7 years, they left us holding the bag and paying the bill for their reckless spending and bad ideas. Their new contract with America? Promises they'll never keep. But Joe Biden and the Democrats deliver.
Yeah, I mean, it is just astounding to me in this race that there has been no Republican policy.
No.
And it's why you end up like DeSantis running on the bedrooms and bathroom ticket.
Yeah.
It's why you end up kidnapping people. You know, if you have something like maybe a coherent theory of government, you don't have to kidnap people to get people to get a.
Hey, Stuart, you and I have been around the block a couple of times, and I can't recall ever once being in the room where someone said, "Hey, let's talk about our kidnapping plan."
No, yeah, you know that we tested that; it tested well. It just goes to the complete collapse of the Republican Party as a center-right party.
Yes,
it's become this organization that exists to gain more power, just to benefit those in power. There's no coherent theory of government. I mean, say what you will about Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she can articulate a theory of government. And you might hate it, you might love it, but she'll argue with you, and you know, you can like talk about it. There's no one who can do that in good faith on the Republican side. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. It's the nihilist Carl Hungus party. Yeah. They believe in nothing.
And that's, you know, there used to be a saying, we were coming up, you know, if you don't believe in anything but re-election, you don't stand for anything but re-election, you don't stand for anything. And that's really what these people do. And there's no one in the party is there who can exert an influence to stop this. The people who try get either booted out of the party, like Liz Cheney, or marginalized. And there's just, you know, there's no stopping this until these candidates are defeated. And what is the saying you have about pain being the only?
Pain is the only teacher in politics. Yeah. And so far they've been able to avoid some of the pain they've deserved. But I don't think that lasts forever.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're in a race. They know that America is rapidly changing. They know that they are a predominantly white party. Trump's coalition with 85% white. The country is somewhere between 58 and 60% white. And since we've been on this show, it's gotten less white. So that's why they're so desperate to change the rules here. And, you know, if you pass a law that the Georgia legislature can vote to overturn the popular vote, when they vote to overturn the popular vote, it's not illegal. They're just abiding by the law. And there is a deliberate, methodical process here to build the structures that are needed to take the country from democracy to autocracy. And, you know, it's all the elements are there. They have the propagandists, they have the financiers, they have legal theories that they're putting together, they have shock troops. And that's why they're so confident, I think. And you and I have talked about this. If we could do anything to the Democratic Party, it would be more confident. There are more of you than there are of them. You're right, they're wrong. Get a little swagger. Build up Biden. He's done a phenomenal job in so many ways.
Well, his numbers moving up have absolutely helped the candidates in the Democratic Party across the field in the country. Hey, folks, one more time on the National Vote Registration Day. Our allied group, Vote Riders, there are great folks there. We've got a graphic for voteriders.org. Get involved with Vote Riders. They are out in the states really working hard to make sure people are registered and ready to go for the fall. It is incredibly important that all the stuff we do with the ads and the messaging and the narrative and working all the angles we do and all the content we put out to help folks make the argument for democracy. It's incredibly important that you work with folks like Vote Riders who can help you ensure at the grassroots, at the basic level, that you can do the thing you need to do. Because believe me, the idea that Republicans keep saying, oh, everyone just should show an ID when they vote, fine. But they're not going to do it that way. They're going to try to keep restricting and like fewer polling places, and they're trying to purge people off the rolls faster. It's really important you be responsible on your own to go out and engage on this. It's the most important civic duty you can execute is to vote. And you can't do it unless you're registered. And these states are going to make it harder and harder. That's why we really encourage you to take this seriously. I'm going to bitch at you every day, probably, that I'm on the air between now and Election Day. Make sure you're registered. Make sure you get your ballot. If you're going to vote absentee or early, get it done. Get out there and vote. It is the most important thing we can do because everything that happens between now and Election Day of 2022 will have a ripple effect out into 2024. It really means a lot. And I think it's one of the things that and honestly, you'll feel great about yourself for doing it. You'll feel proud of doing it. It is a basic civic duty.
Yeah, nothing defines being an American more than being able to pick your own leaders.
Absolutely.
And if you don't participate, you're not picking. You're leaving it to others.
That's right.
It's our greatest legacy. It is a legacy that countless thousands, hundreds of thousands have bled and died for. And we so need to try to get people to feel how important they can be. The course of history is going to be greatly changed by these next two elections. And it's either going to be an affirmation of American democracy and the first steps in beating back this autocratic movement, or there are going to be some dark days. So get out there and vote.
Absolutely. Well, Stuart, thank you so much, brother, for coming on.
Thank you, brother.
And we will see you. I'll see you tomorrow at our morning call. But everybody else, thank you so much for watching. We are so grateful to the audience that tunes into LPTV. Last week, the show had 150,000 viewers on the biggest night. That's cable TV numbers, folks. And why is that important? It's important because it's people engaging in learning and being able to go out and fight and advocate for our democracy. And if we do anything that helps you be stronger about that, we're enormously grateful that you look to us as a source for that sort of message and that sort of inspiration. I can't tell you, it means so much to me. One other piece of personal news, I am going to be restarting a podcast very soon. We'll give you more details to come. It is going to be exciting. It is going to be off the damn chain. The conditions of it are that I get to say fuck as much as I want, and I get to go out and beat up bad people as often as I want. So I just want to let you know that that's coming. I will also be accepting names for it soon, although I have a name in mind. I'll take a few suggestions. So if you want to hashtag me at NameThePod and give me your suggestions, we'll go from there. Also, folks, send your questions to us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for the next show using the hashtag #AskTheBreakdown. Join us again on Thursday of this week. I will be back with you then, and I think Tara will be back also from her German visit. Don't miss We're Speaking tomorrow night at 7 Eastern. They have some of the best interviews and the best guests in the business. I'm jealous. They have amazing guests every time. We will see you again next week or this Thursday, and good night to everyone.